Good day, grade 12 learners. Welcome to today's business studies lesson. My name is Tidiso Tlaka, and this lesson is brought to you by Gauteng Department of Education in collaboration with Saipono Discovery Center. Now, today we look into paper 2 revision as our focus area, and the main topics that we look into is business ventures and business roles. And these are the two main topics that are assessed in your paper 2. Now, learning outcomes. By the end of this lesson or unit, you should be able to know the following. Number one, you should know the structure of the paper. You should also know the main topics that we assess in paper 2. Then know the examination preparation, or we will try to give you examination preparation tips to say how can you prepare for the examination. Now, let us start with the first part of our learning outcomes. You should know the structure of the question paper. Paper 2 has 3 sections similar to paper 1. You have section A, section B, and section C. Your section A consists of compulsory short questions which are allocated 30 marks, and the time you should spend there is 20 minutes. You have business roles and business ventures allocated 15 marks, and you have 3 types of compulsory short questions, which is 1.1 being multiple choice, 1.2 being choosing the correct word, and 1.3 being matching items between column A, which is the concept, and the phrases in column B talking to those concepts. So that is your section A. It is compulsory. You should answer. Whether you know the answer or not, just guess, guys. Use whatever alphabet you think might be the answer. Just answer the entire section A and choose the options that you have there or you see in your multiple choice, in your choosing the correct word, in the box concepts and matching items. Then section B, that's where we have now 3 questions, and with those 3 questions there's an instruction that says choose any 2 questions, and each question is allocated 40, making it to say 40 times 2, because you are choosing 2, will then allocate the mark or the total mark for section B to be 80. And this is a section that helps you to obtain your distinction or to obtain your top performance, and then the time you should spend there is 70 minutes. Then you have the following questions. Question 2 will assess business ventures subtopics, allocated 40 marks, and then question 3 will assess business roles subtopics, allocated 40 marks as well. And then you also have question 4, which is your miscellaneous total or question, and it assesses both business ventures for 20 marks and business roles for 20 marks. Therefore, according to section B, you are therefore expected to prepare both business ventures and business roles, because even if you choose question 2 business ventures, you will still have 20 marks on business roles to answer if you are going to question 4, or if you are choosing question 2 and question 4. If you choose question 3 and question 4, you still have to answer 20 marks allocated under the business venture. So it makes it necessary for you to prepare both business ventures and business roles so that you obtain your total mark in section B, which is 80. Then section C is our last section in this question paper. You have an essay type question there, and there's an instruction to you to say choose one question. You choose only one question, and you have 2 questions. You have your question 5 and you have your question 6. And your question 5 will assess business venture subtopics, which we are going to show after this slide. And then your question 6 will assess your business roles subtopics, which we are also going to show. And the mark allocated for choosing one between question 5 and question 6 is 40 marks, and the time you should spend is 30 minutes. Therefore, you will choose the essay based on your strength, based on your preparation, to say you can either choose question 5 or choose question 6, depending on your strength and preparation. Now, main topics that are assessed in your paper 2, they include business ventures and business roles. So to address that, we are saying business ventures is going to be assessed in question 2. Business roles in question 3. And again, they get to be assessed both in your question 4. And then we also said for an essay type question, business ventures will be question 5. But for business roles, it will be question 6. That is the structure of the paper, just to give you a summary again. Then, let's look into subtopics under the business venture or business ventures. You have management and leadership, which was taught to you term 2. You have investment securities together with investment insurance, which was taught in term 2. Then you have forms of ownership together with presentation and data response, which was taught in term 3. So you should know these main topics will be assessed in question 2 or assessed in question 5 or assessed in question 4. Because question 4 is 20 marks, but question 2 is 40, and question 5 is 40 as well. So you prepare all, you know that you are allocated how many marks? 100 marks for looking into these subtopics under business ventures. Then let's look into subtopics under business roles. You have ethics and professionalism, to say what is the role of the business in being ethical and in being professional. Then you have creative thinking and problem solving, to say what is the role of the business in being in making sure that they encourage creativity in the workplace and the advantages of creativity in the workplace and in problem solving. Then you also have social responsibility, corporate social responsibility, and corporate social investment. Then you have human rights, inclusivity, and environmental issues. Then you have team performance and conflict management. Now, these are going to be assessed in question 3, in question 4, and in question 6, making it 40 marks for question 3, 20 marks here in question 4, and 40 marks in question 6, then allocated 100 for the business role subtopic. And remember, we still have multiple choice, which might be allocated 15 marks, making it to be 115 for these subtopics. Therefore, that would be your business roles. Now let us look into section C. Section C is your essay type question, to say which subtopic could be an essay. It can either be management and leadership, or investment security, or it can be investment insurance or forms of ownership. Then it can also be presentation and data response. Therefore, anything can be an essay under the business ventures. So when you look into management and leadership, if it becomes an essay, it becomes easy because it talks to what? It talks to the differences between management and leadership. It talks to the different leadership styles. You should know how to apply them, or when can they be used or applied in the workplace, and also know the impact, to say what is the advantage of using autocratic, what is the advantage of using laissez-faire, what is the advantage of using democratic. So then the importance of team dynamic theories, and then you should also know the role of personal attitude in successful leadership, and you should also know your situational and transformational leadership theories. Investment securities, you should know there your functions of JSE, factors to be considered before making an investment decision. You should also know the investment opportunities and the forms. So most of these aspects we're going to be dealing with in a form of section B. Then when you look into business rules, an essay can be on ethics and professionalism, creative thinking and problem solving. It can be social responsibility and CSR and CSI. It can be human rights, inclusivity, and environmental issues, together with team performance and conflict management. So when you look into that, they can be an essay. So it's about you preparing for all these subtopics so that you become safe. So when you look into your human rights, inclusivity, and environmental issues, it talks, for instance, to the different types of human rights in the workplace on how the business could deal with them. It talks to economic rights. It talks to promoting cultural and social rights in the workplace. You also have diversity issues. You need to know how to identify them and explain how the business could deal with those diversity issues. You have the benefits of a good quality management system. Then you should also have the benefits of diversity, not the benefit of a good quality management system. That would be paper one. For paper two, we talk about the benefits of diversity in the workplace. Then you also have to think about the issue of environmental issues. What is the role of the workers or employees in promoting human health and safety? And what is the role of, for instance, the health and safety representatives in promoting human health and safety in the workplace? Now, let us look into the first part that would help you understand section B and help you to understand the section on business ventures, which is now leadership and management. We start by looking into the leadership styles. We have the following leadership styles under your leadership and management. You have your democratic, autocratic, transactional, charismatic, and laissez-faire or free reign. Those are your leadership styles. Now, when we look into those leadership styles, you should understand the following. Let's start by focusing on autocratic leadership style and democratic leadership style. So when you look into an autocratic leadership style, here we are saying this is a leader that does not allow employees to take decisions. So in this business, the leader does not allow the employees to take decisions or to contribute their input or participate in decision making. And this leadership style can be used in a crisis situation, for example, in a case of unforeseen challenges. And it can also be used when all the information is available to solve the problems. Then when you look into democratic, now this is a leader that allows employees to participate in decision making. So the leader here allows employees to participate in decision making, but the employees are not making the decision. They are just participating. What does that mean? They give an idea, they give an input, but the leader is the one who's going to make the final decision. Now, when can this leadership style be applied or be used? It can be used when group members are skilled and they are eager to share their ideas. That's number one. It can also be used when the leader does not have all the information needed. Therefore, because the leader does not have all the information needed to make the decisions, employees in that situation would be having valuable information to contribute. So then that is when that leadership style can be used, because in this theory, the aim is to make you understand that a leader cannot use one leadership style every time. Hence, we say application, which talks to the situation in which the leadership style can be applied. It can be applied when the members or employees are skilled and they are eager to share their ideas, whereas it can also be used when the leader does not have all the information needed to make decisions and employees have the valuable information to contribute. Then we look into two other leadership styles. We have laissez-faire and charismatic leadership style. So it's either laissez-faire or you call it free reign. So this is a leader that allows employees to make decisions on their own work method. So with this type of leader, the leader allows employees to decide on their own work method, to say how are they going to complete the task or complete their jobs. Now, when can this leadership style be used? It can be used when employees are experts and can take responsibility for their actions. That's what. And then it can also be used when the leader is very busy and delegation of the task will increase productivity. So when we say delegation, it means now the leader is giving the employees power to make decisions in his or her absence. So that is when you use laissez-faire as a leader. Then charismatic leadership style. This is a leader that uses charm to influence his team to achieve the business goals. Now, it can be used by a leader who's able to sell the vision and achieve excellent results. It can also be used when the leader wants to inspire hard work amongst employees through using the charm. The charm comes from the ability of the leader to communicate and the ability of the leader to show their skills to the followers or workers, and workers get to be inspired to also try to imitate what the leader has achieved. Then we also have the last now leadership style. This is your transactional leadership style. This is a leader that uses a system of reward and punishment to motivate employees. When can it be used? It can be used when deadlines have to be met on short notice or under a lot of pressure. And then it can also be used when workers have a low morale. That is when you use transactional leadership style. Now let us talk to an question to say, how can the examiner assess you in section B? The examiner, for instance, here can say, read the scenario below and answer questions that follow. So you have Bushido Computer Software, BCS. Bushido Computer Softwares specializes in developing new computer softwares for various computer programs. Cindy, the production manager, has motivated employees as they are allowed to give their inputs. So here, employees became motivated because they are allowed to give their inputs. That is why Lebu, the administration manager, gives a task without instruction on how to do it. Now, that is Lebu. Lebu just give a task and doesn't give the employees an instruction to say how should they complete that particular task. Now, what is the question saying? Based on the scenario, the question expects of you to identify the leadership styles used by Cindy and Lebu and motivate your answer by quoting from the scenario above. And this is your scenario there. Then 2.1.2 says, evaluate the impact of one of the leadership styles identified above for 6 months. Now, I will say to you, let me allow you to try to answer this question. I will give you 2 minutes. After the 2 minutes, I come back with the solution. And then we look into how were you supposed to identify and also look into the impact, wherein we can allow you to provide both positives and negatives, and we can also allow you to provide positives only or negatives only. But it is always important, or it is always advised, that you focus on positives more and study less of your negatives. So let me give you your 2 minutes and then I will come back with the solution. So let me give you your 2 minutes. Welcome back. Now, let us look into the solution and how are you supposed to go about answering this question. So, you look into the scenario. The first sentence tells you about the business. To say, Bushido Computer Software does what? Develops new computer softwares for various computer programs. Cindy, the production manager. Now, that's where you get your answer. Because they say the production manager has motivated employees as they are allowed to give their inputs. So this now tells you to say there's an answer here, because immediately employees are motivated, and what allows them to be motivated is the idea that they are allowed to give their inputs. And which leadership style talks to giving the employees an opportunity to give their input? That should be democratic. This is democratic leadership style, which is being used by Cindy. Then we say this is democratic. Then label, the administration manager gives a task without a instruction on how to do it. So this has to do with what? Allowing freedom for employees to make a decision without the leader. Therefore, we say this is laissez-faire or free reign. Hence, I said freedom to make a decision without the leader. Hence, we say this is free reign. Now, that is how you are supposed to analyze the scenario and identify the leadership style. So the solution should be democratic for Cindy and laissez-faire or free reign for labor. And the motivation is the production manager has motivated employees as they are allowed to give their inputs, and then the administrative manager gives a task without an instruction on how to do it. Then let's look into the impact of these leadership styles. The first one is what? Is your democratic. What are the positives of using a democratic leadership style? Where as a leader, you allow employees that you are leading or your subordinates or your followers to give you ideas. Now, the first advantage is that the leaders do not have to rely on their own knowledge or skills to solve problems. That's number one. Number two, the authority is delegated, which can motivate or inspire workers to be more productive. Then another one, complex decisions can be made with inputs from the employees. Then what are the negatives? Input from inexperienced employees could lead to decisions that are not in the interest or in the best interest of the organization. Then the leaders could rely on making decisions because, or the leader could delay making decisions because he or she is waiting for the input of the employees. So those are the disadvantages. When a question says explain the impact, you are allowed to provide positives or advantages or negatives, and you are also allowed to do what? To provide a mix of both positives and negatives. Then let us look into another aspect that says now complex. I think this part was supposed to be here to say complex decisions can be made with inputs from skilled workers. Then impact of free reign or laissez-faire. What are the positives there? Employees are trusted and given responsibility of making decisions in an area of their expertise. Hence, we said here a leader says, we are giving you this task, but you will decide on how to do it. You will decide on the method. You will decide on whatever way of completing it. But the task is for you. But the decision on how to complete it, you will then decide. Hence, we say employees are trusted with the ability to complete the task. This is because their expertise will help them to make the best decision. And then employees do not need to consult with the leader when making decisions that benefit the organization. Then what are the negatives? The uncertainty regarding the clear decision making could influence the morale of the employees negatively. And then employees could be hesitant to take decisive actions which could affect their work performance. So now, those are the negatives of using laissez-faire as a leader, to say now, in the absence of the leader, now some of the employees can be hesitant, or they can hesitate, or they will be unsure about making a decision or taking a decisive action which could affect the performance. Then another direct question now on the leadership and management as a subtopic. You can have a direct question that asks you to discuss maybe the situational leadership theory, or in another instance, they can say explain the transformational leadership theory. So you should know how to answer the theory question. It is just a direct question which may require of you to respond, or they might say quote or identify from a scenario. So when we look into the theories, the understanding we should be having is that with the leadership theories, there is no impact of leadership theories and situations in which they can be applied in the workplace. These are theories that educate the leaders on how to apply their leadership style more effectively. Hence, we have three theories. We have situational leadership theory, we have transformational leadership theory, and we also have the leaders and followers. So these theories educate employees, for instance, on the following. With situational leadership theory, it educates the leader to say leaders are required to manage employees under different conditions. So this is an education to a leader to say, as a leader, you are required to manage employees under different conditions, and different character traits are required to deal with each situation within the workplace. So this is to say, as a leader, you cannot use one character trait. You need to read the condition. You need to understand the conditions and understand that employees have to be managed differently as per the conditions that the business might be facing. In a case of the business being under pressure, the business or the leader might have to look into that condition and come up with a leadership character trait that will talk and save the under pressure situation. So that is what the theory is teaching the leader. Furthermore, it says a different leadership style, because we have 5 leadership styles. It says a different leadership style would be adopted or used by the leader based on the prevailing circumstance at a particular time. So this is to say, as a leader, you need to use different leadership styles based on the prevailing circumstance. Let's say the business is under pressure. If the business is under pressure, the employee or the employees will be under pressure. What should the leader do to ensure that they submit on time? The leader should use a leadership style that allows the employees to push within the pressure with certain motivation, which would be the transactional leadership style, because it allows the leader to say, to offer a reward or to punish those who don't submit on time due to the under pressure situation. In a case whereby the leader is looking for new ideas, the leader will have to do what? Encourage the employees to come up with their inputs. Therefore, that will talk to what? That will talk to democratic leadership style, because it's a leadership style that allows employees to contribute their ideas. Hence, we say a different leadership style would be adopted by the leader based on the prevailing circumstance. In a case of under pressure, a certain leadership style has to be used if the business is under pressure. In a case of new ideas, we would use democratic. But under pressure, we use transactional. Now, this is not what I want to see in the answer sheet when you're answering. This helps you to understand this point that says a different leadership style has to be adopted by the leader based on the prevailing circumstance. What circumstance are we talking about? When the business is under pressure or when the business is looking for new ideas. Those are circumstances, those are conditions, those are situations. Then, effective leaders may adopt the leadership style that will ensure that goals of the organizations are achieved. And the relationship between the leader and the employees is based on values of trust, integrity, and respect. So those are your situational leadership theory. And it says here the relationship between the leader and employee is based on what? Trust, integrity, and what? Respect. Therefore, the employee will understand to say if the leader is being autocratic, it's because of a condition, it's because of the prevailing circumstance, it's based on the situation that the business is facing. Then we look into transformational. With the transformational leadership theory, number one, it educates the leader to say, now, this leadership theory would be adopted or be used during the periods in which the organization is experiencing radical change. So the first thing that the leader should know about this theory is that this theory is to be used in a case of the business experiencing radical changes. Then the leader may use his communication. Now it teaches the leader this theory to say, the leader, as a leader, you should use your communication skills or passion or interactions with employees to convince employees to accept the changes that are planned in the organization. So the leader can change the organization by using their communication or communication skills or passion or interactions with employees to convince. So for change to happen, the leader will have to use their skills in order to convince the employees to accept the change. That's number one. And then the passion, vision, or personality of the leader should inspire followers to change their expectations or perceptions or motivation to work towards a common goal that the business wants to change into. And then the strategic thinking leaders should develop a long-term vision for the organization and sell it to subordinates or employees. Now, those are your leadership styles, and we looked into the theories and looked into the different leadership styles, and you should also know the differences between the management and also know the what? Leadership, to say what are the differences between management and leadership. Now we look into investment security. With investment security, you should know that investment security covers the following: the functions of JSE, investment decisions or factors to be considered before making an investment decision, investment opportunities and their risk, forms of investment together with types of shares and types of preference shares. Then you have your simple and compound interest under your investment security. Then, when you look into the issue of types of investment opportunities, you have the following: stokvel, managed portfolio, 32 days notice account, debentures, business ventures, and life insurance. And remember, you should know how to identify them from a scenario. And what will guide you to say you are choosing from these six is a question. The question, if the question says identify investment opportunities and their risk, you are choosing from either stokvel, managed portfolio, 32 days notice account, debentures, business ventures, or life insurance. But in a case of a question saying forms of investment, you should know that you have 4 forms of investment. This is your RSA retail savings bond, this is unit trust, shares, together with what? Your fixed deposit. And you should know the impact. You should know the impact of these forms of investment. Now, again, in a nutshell, we will be having shares under investment security. You should know that you have types of preference shares and you have types of shares. You have 4 types of shares, which is your bonus shares, founders shares, ordinary shares, and preference shares. I would advise that be in a position to name these types of shares together with the types of preference shares, to say you have your participating preference share, you have your non-participating preference share, you have your cumulative preference share, and you have your non-cumulative. Then you have your redeemable and you have your non-redeemable preference share. Then you have your convertible, then you have your non-convertible preference share. Be in a position to name them, because they can be used to identify from the scenario, or they can be used in a 2.1 or 4.1 situation whereby you are expected to name them from the scenario. Then we look into the forms of investment again, to say, remember that you have 4 forms of investment: RSA retail savings bond, unit trust, shares, and fixed deposit. And what is key here is that you should know how to identify them from the scenario. Let us look into one of the scenarios to say this is how you can be assessed, and you should know and have the skill to identify from the scenario. So you have 2.3, which instructs you to say read the scenario below and answer the questions that follow. You have Litabo, who inherited 50,000 from her late parents, and he chose an investment where withdrawals can only happen at the end of the investment term. He also chose an investment where it is easy to cash in when the investor needs money. Now, identify two forms of investment chosen by Litabo. Motivate your answer by quoting from the scenario above. Then evaluate the impact of the forms of investment identified in question 2.3.1, meaning after identifying the two, you should know how to evaluate the impact. Then discuss factors to be considered before making an investment decision. Now, let us look into this scenario, and I give you 2 minutes. You identify for me the two forms of investment that are applicable to this scenario here, because Letabo inherited money, but now Letabo chose only two forms of investment. And with forms of investment, remember, you are choosing from the four, which is fixed deposit, RSA retail savings bond, shares, together with unit trust. So let me give you 2 minutes. You try to answer. Then I come back after with the solutions. So let me give you your 2 minutes. Welcome back. We look now into how were you supposed to answer this question. The instruction 2.3, read the scenario below and answer questions that follow. Now, the key part is for you to know your impact. If you know your positives and negatives, those are sources that the examiner will use to develop a scenario. So when you check here, they say now we chose an investment where withdrawals only happen at the end of the investment term. And there's only one investment form that allows for that to happen. And then another one is that he chose an investment where it is easy to cash in when the investor needs money. So where is our answer? The first answer is here to say it is easy to cash in when the investor needs money. Another one is that the key information is this is an investment where you are only allowed to withdraw at the end of the investment term. And we consider that to be a particular form of investment. So now, with those keywords that I have encircled, if you have studied your notes, you should know now that this is fixed deposit, because in a fixed deposit as a form of investment, you are not allowed, for instance, to withdraw the money that you have put into the deposit. You will only access the money at the end of the investment period. And then with the investment form that allows for you to easily cash in, meaning easily withdraw if you need the money that you have invested, that should be unit trust. It is unit trust because it is the one that allows for such to happen. Now let us look if I was correct. Fixed deposit, yes, because it shows an investment where withdrawals only happen at the end of the investment period. Then unit trust, because it shows an investment where it will be easy to cash in when the investor needs money. But look into the motivation. Yes, the key word is easy to cash in. Yes, the key word is withdrawals only happen at the end of the investment term. But it doesn't mean you only quote this information here. It doesn't mean you only quote easy to cash in. You need to quote the entire sentence from where it starts to where it ends, and from where it starts to where it ends, so that you get your 1 mark for motivation and another 1 mark for motivation, so that in total you have 6 marks, because here you have 2 marks for the motivation and 4 marks for identification of the forms of investment. Now, let us evaluate the impact of the forms of investment identified in question 2.3.1. Firstly, we identified fixed deposit. What are the positives? With fixed deposit, interest is fixed. Interest is aimed at a fixed rate regardless of the changes in the economic climate, meaning the interest that is given, if the bank offers, for instance, 10%, the interest will remain 10%. Whether the repo rate goes up or goes down, the interest doesn't change under the fixed deposit. That is one of the advantages. The period of investment can be over short, medium, or long term. Then the investor can choose the investment period that suits them. But what are the negatives with this form of investment? The negatives are, as you have invested your money with fixed deposit, the investor does not have access to any funds invested until the end of the investment period. This is the disadvantage, because should there be any emergency that might force you to withdraw the money you have invested, it will not be allowed. There's no accessibility. The accessibility is only at the end, meaning when we say accessibility, to say the amounts that you shall have invested in a bank, you cannot get them and use them in an emergency. You can only get them at the end of the investment period. Then this type of investment generally provides the investors with lower returns than other types of investment. So it generally provides lower returns, meaning the rate of interest given for a fixed deposit is generally lower as compared to other investments, because this is a low risk investment. It is considered to be a low risk investment, and then it may outperform the effects of inflation, or it may not outperform the effects of inflation over long term, meaning when it comes to the rate of interest may not outperform the rate of inflation. So it may lead to returns that are lower than the inflation rate, which will mean less purchasing power for the investor. Now, we look into evaluating the impact of a unit trust. With the unit trust, the positives are it is managed by a fund manager who buys shares on stock exchange. That's number one. So because they are managed by a fund manager is an expert. So that is the advantage, is an expert who buys shares on JSE or Johannesburg Security Exchange. And the other advantage is that it is easy to cash in when the investor needs money. Do we give this 2 marks? No, we give it an R. Why? Because we saw it in the scenario. Therefore, if you have seen a fact in the scenario and you choose to use it in a follow-on question, like in this regard, 2.3.2 is a follow-on question. It is based on question 2.3.1. So what was on the scenario was the idea that he chose an investment which is easy to cash in when the investor needs money. Therefore, because you shall have received 1 mark for motivation, we cannot give it another mark. We say it is repeated because it's from the scenario. And then another advantage of investing in a unit trust is that a small amount can be invested per month. Then another, when we look into the negatives, share prices may fluctuate. As you can see, this is because in a unit trust, the fund manager will buy shares. Hence, we say share prices may fluctuate. They may go up, but they may also go down, which might be a disadvantage. And with a unit trust, it's not good for people who want to invest for a short period. And then it's not good for people who want to avoid risks at all costs, because when you invest in shares, you are then going to be faced with some particular risks. Then discuss any 2 factors to be considered before making an investment decision. We will talk to all these factors. Number 1, before making an investment decision, here's Mr. Tlhaka, he has 1 million. So we are saying before Mr. Tlhaka can make an investment decision, can consider which investment opportunity or form, or before choosing a type of investment opportunity, or before choosing a type of investment form, what should Mr. Tlhaka think about? What should Mr. Tlhaka consider? Before investing the 1 million, Mr. Tlhaka, think about the return on investment. Number 1, what is return on investment? Return on investment is the interest that you may earn from investing. What percentage are they going to offer you? You might have an investment form that gives you 10%. The other investment can give you maybe, for instance, lower interest, maybe give you 5%. The other one maybe can give you 6%. So we are saying now, return on investment will then be the rate of a return or additional money that might be made from the investment that you choose. So you should consider the rate. Obviously, if there's an investment form that gives you 10% and another one gives you 5% and another one gives you 6%, they say consider return on investment to say how much are you getting in return. So 10% is more than 5 and is more than 6%. Therefore, consider 10% as a good return on investment than 5%. Hence, we say, again, this is influenced by the level of risk that comes. 10% might be for a high risk investment. 5% might be for a low risk investment. So this might be for a high risk investment. So we say return on investment, consider the idea that return on investment will be higher if the risk involved in the investment is high. So the return is 10% because maybe there's high risks involved in that particular investment. But with 5%, it is low because there's low risk involved. Then we proceed and look into another factor that Mr. Tlhaka should think about, which is risk. What is risk? Risk has to do with the chances of losing the amount invested in total or in half. So we are saying now, different investment opportunities have different risks linked to them, and that is how you should understand it. Then we have another factor that should be considered before making an investment decision to say, investment period or term. This talks to how long is the investor willing to keep the money with the investment company or with the investment financial institution. So it refers to the investment period, refers to the duration of the investment from the initial date to the investment of the investment until the termination. So there's 3 years in investment, there's 4 years, there's 5 years. So hence we say this is a duration. So this is what the investor should consider to say, do I need my money to be with the financial institution for 5 years or for 4 years or for 3 years? Then inflation rate. The investor should think about the inflation rate, because the inflation rate is basically a rate that determines the general increase in the prices of goods and services. Therefore, when they are choosing the interest, the return on investment, they should compare with the inflation rate to say, if the inflation rate is 11%, for example, then do not take an investment that is offering what, 10%, because the general increase of the prices of goods and services will be more than the rate of interest that the investor will be receiving. Hence, we say the higher the inflation rate, the lower the purchasing power of money. Therefore, if the inflation rate is at 4.5%, but the interest that is being offered is 10%, then you can consider this return on investment to be good one, because it will be over the inflation rate, which will allow you to buy more or allow your money to have more purchasing power. Then other aspects that should be considered is liquidity. With liquidity, we are saying now, liquidity refers to the speed with which the investment can be converted into cash, meaning from, maybe let's say, for example, the name of the company is Salami Bank. You say, I want to invest with Salami Bank. So when we are saying liquidity, we are saying the speed in which the money that you have kept with Salami Bank can go to your personal account. So if it is easy for the money to go back to your personal account, we say the liquidity is less. But if it is not, we say the liquidity is difficult. So those are aspects that you should consider as well, to say, is it easy to withdraw the money that you have invested or not. Taxation. You should also consider the idea that different investment opportunities come with different income tax implications. So income tax implications must be considered in order to ensure that there's a high net after tax return. Then let us look into a question here under your investment opportunities, where we are looking into what? We are dealing with the issue on calculating the simple and compound interest, because when you're looking into that, it talks to calculations under investment security. So let me allow you this time 5 minutes for you to respond to this question, test your mathematical skills, so that we have an understanding on how you should deal with answering calculations in your business studies paper 2, question 2. So let me give you 5 minutes. Welcome back. Now we look into how to respond to this question. Now, the instruction is read the scenario below and answer questions that follow. Ronette wants to invest 30,000 in a fixed deposit for 2 years. So very critical when you're working with numbers to underline. Say 2 years stands for 2. And how much is Ronette willing to invest is 30,000. Then she approached 2 banks. Saint Bank offered a 12% simple interest per annum, and Capri Bank offered 12% compounded interest per annum as well. But they are not the same. Saint Bank offers simple interest, let's be clear. Then Capri Bank offers compounded interest per annum. Now, 2.4.1, calculate the interest amount Ronette will receive after 2 years if she invests with Saint Bank. And we need to consider what Saint Bank is offering. 12% of what? Of simple interest. Now, there's a way to calculate simple interest and there's a way to calculate compound interest. Now, let's start with 2.4.1 to say how much is Saint Bank willing to offer her. So firstly your responsibility is to know the formula to say we have P, which is the principal amount Ronette is willing to invest. Then you also have I, which is the interest amount. Then you also have times 2, or N, which is the number of years. Now let's substitute. Let's go back to the scenario and underline the key information. The 30,000 is standing for the P, then the 2 stands for the what? Number of years, which is the N. Then Saint Bank, let's check. Yes, we are dealing with Saint Bank. So we say Saint Bank offered 12%. So our I then becomes what? The 12%. And how is that 12% offered? In terms of simple interest per annum. So now let us substitute. We're going to say the P stands for 30,000. And this is a calculation for what? For year 1. Or we say this is just a calculation for simple interest. And then we say times the interest. What is the interest saying there? 12%. Which can also be understood to be 12 over 100. And we say now, for how many years? This is how we calculate, remember, for what? For simple interest. So this is the formula for simple interest. Now, we say multiply by the number of years, which is what? 2 years. We go and punch in our calculator to say the answer here is equals to how much? The answer is supposed to be, when you say 30,000 multiplied by 12 over 100 multiplied by 2, we need to confirm it, remember, so that we become safe. Multiply by 12 divided by 100 multiplied by 2, then the answer is supposed to be 7,200. So that is one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is to calculate for each year. So how will you do it there? You are going to have a formula for year 1 and say year 1 we have P times I. Then we say for year 1 we say 30,000 multiplied by 12 over 100 and say what is the answer for year 1. Then the answer is supposed to be 3,600. That is the answer for year 1. Then you go for year 2. With year 2, what is the answer? You do the same thing again. Say 30,000 multiplied by 12 over 100. And say what is the answer? It's going to be the same. It's going to be 3,600. We don't add the principal amount. This is what you do for simple interest. Then you say interest for year 1 plus interest for year 2. Then we say interest for year 1 plus interest for year 2. We say 3,006 plus 3,600. And then what is the answer? 7,200. And this is the interest that Ronette will get. The interest is 7,200. Then we move to 2.4.2. 2.4.2 now is no longer simple interest, but it is compounded interest. So let's make it clear. Now we are calculating compounded interest. So with compounded interest, what is the formula now? You start by saying year 1. Remember, with compounded interest, it is expected of you to take the interest that will be earned in year 1 and add it to the principal amount. Let's underline the principal amount again. Our principal amount is 30,000. The years of the investment is 2. The interest is 12. So we use the same formula again to say P multiplied by I, which is the interest. And then for year 1, so we focus on year 1 so that we could show what we mean by compounded. So we're going to say 30,000 multiplied by 12 over 100. Then the answer is for year 1, 3,600. Then we go to year 2. Before we start calculating year 2, we should have understanding that compounded interest means the interest that was earned in year 1 should be added to the principal amount of investment. Therefore, before we calculate year 2, we start by saying P, which is the principal amount, plus the interest earned in year 1. So what is the interest earned in year 1? What is P when we substitute? P stands for what? For 30,000. And then we say 30,000 plus interest earned in year 1, which is what? 3,600. Here we are doing the compounded interest investment, which says now the principal amount will change over the period of investment. Hence, we are seeing the principal amount being added with the interest that was earned in year 1 to change the principal amount from 30,000 to what now? To 33,600. And then now let us calculate the interest, because here we were compounding, because we will compound and add the interest that was earned in year 1 and calculate the interest after adding the interest that was earned or the business received or the investor received in year 1. So now the new principal amount is what? 3,600. That's what we're going to use to calculate for year 2. To say now in year 2 we have P multiplied by I. Now, what is the understanding we should be having? Should we use this 30,000? No, we don't use this 30,000, but we use the new principal amount, which is 33,600. So therefore, we say 33,600 multiplied by the interest. What is the multiplied by the interest rate, which is 12 over 100. And then we say, what is the answer there? So when you check there, the answer is supposed to be 4,032. So now the interest that was earned in year 1 in year 1 is 3,600, but the interest that was earned in year 2 is 4,032 rand. What is the difference? The difference is that the principal amount for year 1 is not similar to the principal amount from year 2. Why did the principal amount change? It was because according to compound interest, the 3,600 that was earned in year 1 as interest has to be added into the previous year principal amount, changing the principal amount to be 33,600. So you take 33,600 and use it to calculate the new interest or the interest for year 2, which is now 33,600 multiplied by 12 over 100. Then the answer becomes 4,032. Are you done? No, because you have to calculate the interest to say what is the interest now. So interest is what now? You're going to say interest earned in year 1. This is where you take it. This is for year 1 is 32, is 36, or is 3,600, I mean, plus interest in year 2, which is what your 4,000, this is 4,032. Then to say the final answer here is supposed to be 4,032. The final answer is supposed to be 7,632. That is the total that you should aim from 3,600 plus 4,032. That's how much you get for compound interest. Now, hoping everyone understood. Now let us look into identifying the types of preference shares represented by each statement below. You have 2.4, which has 2.4.1, 2.4.2, and 2.4.3. So now, you need to know how to identify them from the scenario or statement. In this regard, we have a statement-based question. So 2.4.1 says shareholders are entitled to participate. They're entitled to a share in any surplus profit. So there's only one type of preference share that allows for the shareholder to have a share in a surplus profit. Then shareholders are compensated for past dividends that were not paid out when profits were too low to declare dividends. And then shares are sold to shareholders at an option of being bought back on certain conditions. So now, what type of preference share are applicable to 2.4.1 to 2.4.3? So when you say surplus, this then talks to participating preference share. Then we also have the idea that past dividends are compensated, meaning if the company did not perform well, if you are holding types of preference share we call cumulative, we consider this to be a cumulative preference share because past dividends will be paid out, meaning profits that were not paid in the previous way when the company was not doing well will be paid out when the company is doing well. Then shares are sold to shareholders at an option of being bought back on certain condition, which will talk to redeemable preference share. Is that redeemable? Redeemable preference share. So let's check the solutions there. We have participating preference share, you have cumulative, then you have redeemable preference share. Then we move and look into investment insurance. Under investment insurance, you have the following. You have to know to elaborate on the meaning of non-compulsory insurance, differences between insurance and assurance. You should know how to define the following concepts over insurance, under insurance, average loss, together with reinstatement and excess. You should further be in a position to know the principles of insurance, which include the following: the principle of indemnity and the principle of security, the principle of utmost good faith, and the principle of insurable interest. Then you should know the types of compulsory insurance, which include road accident fund, unemployment insurance fund, together with compensation for occupational injuries and disease amended act. Now, when you look into the concepts, please do not confuse them with the principles of insurance. You have 5 concepts, which is over, under, average loss, reinstatement, and excess. Then you also have the what now? The principles of insurance, which include the principle of indemnity, the principle of security, the principle of good faith, utmost good faith, and the principle of insurable interest. Now let us look into how can you possibly be assessed. For instance, you can have direct questions such as outline the importance of insurance for the business. These are the advantages of insurance. Or you can have a question that requires of you to differentiate between over and under insurance. Then you can also have a direct question that says distinguish between insurance and assurance, and also discuss any two principles of insurance. Now let's start by looking into a key way to remember the importance or remember, the examiner can say importance or can say the advantages of insurance. Number one, transfer of risk from the insured to the insurance company. The transfer of risk, that is the advantage of having insurance for the business. They transfer the risk from the insured to an insurance company. Another advantage is the transfer of risk is subjected to terms and conditions of the insurance contract. Another one is that the advantage, it protects the business against dishonest employees. And then another key part is protect the business against losses due to the death of the debtor. And again, it protects the business against losses due to theft. So your keywords, number one keyword is transfer. Transfer of risk. You should know it is transfer of risk from the insured to the insurance company. Then another one we have as a keyword is protect. Insurance will protect the businesses. It will protect the businesses against what? Number one, dishonest employees. Or it will protect the business against losses due. So I'm giving you a keyword to say, remember protect against, remember transfer of risk. It will allow you to obtain more points. Now, transfer of the risk is also subjected to terms and conditions. Then, as we proceed, differences between over and under insurance. With over insurance, we are saying assets that are insured for more than their market value. Then with under insurance, we are saying assets that are not insured for their full market value. So they are not. So what is a market value? What is a market value? The market value is the selling price. So let's say the selling price is 400,000 for that particular asset. When we talk about over insurance, we are saying it is insured for over insurance, we are saying it is insured for what? Maybe it is insured for 500,000. This is because it is over. This is over. But when we say under, we say it is not fully insured. So we say then this would be under 400. Anything under 400 will be considered to be under insurance. But anything that is over 500,000 is considered to be over insurance, because the market value talks to the selling. This is the selling price. Now, over insurance, it is when assets are insured for more than, meaning the insurance amount taken for this asset is 500,000. And when we are saying underinsured, assets that are not insured for their full market value. What is the market value? What is the selling price? The selling price is 400,000, but the business has decided to insure the asset for 300,000, which is the less, or which is under. It is under the market value of the asset. Now, the insured can choose to reinstate the insurer can choose to reinstate the insured, but in the case of under insurance, the insurer will implement average clause to determine the amount that should be paid. Remember, you should know the formula of your average clause for you to be able to calculate and then businesses will not receive a payout larger than the value of the loss at market value. So in a case of a business claiming while they were overinsured, they will not receive 500,000 amount which they were paying for, but they will receive only 400,000. Then when you look into average loss, the business will only be paid out for the amount of goods or assets that are insured for. Then we look into the differences between insurance and assurance. Very clear to the point, insurance is based on the principle of indemnity, but assurance is based on the principle of security or certainty. But when you look into insurance, it covers a specified event that may occur. So insurance is for an asset, such as what? Such as a car, such as a house, or such as a cell phone. Those are assets. So hence we say it covers an event that may occur. As you buy a cell phone, you don't know if they are it's gonna be lost, it's gonna be stolen. If you buy a car, you don't know if it's gonna be hijacked or not. Hence we say the specified event may occur, may or may not occur. It is not certain that the car is going to be hijacked or there will be theft of the car that the insured might have bought. But when you look into assurance, we're saying specified event is certain, but the time of the event is not known. So hence we say assurance covers a human life. What is that one specified event that is certain? It is certain that a human life has to end at some point, but the time, it is not certain. Hence, we say assurance is applicable to long-term insurance because a human life is long, but insurance is applicable to what? Short-term insurance, because as a lifespan of a car is short, a lifespan of a cell phone, of a house is also short. So those are what you should consider. Then, when you look into the principles now of insurance, we have the first principle being the principle of indemnity, which usually applies to short-term insurance as the insured is compensated for a specified proven harm or loss. And then when you look into the other one is the principle of security, which applies to long-term insurance, where the insurer undertakes to pay out an agreed amount of money in an event of loss of life. So the idea here is that the principle of security protects human life or protects the dependence of the insured in a case of the event of losing life. Hence we say the agreed upon amount will be paid in an event of loss of life. But with indemnity, it is a short-term insurance as the insured is compensated for a specified proven harm or loss. Hence, after a car accident, the car, it is insured. What proof is there that the car was involved in an accident? The person who's involved has to open a case. The Metro Police will come and record what actually happened. That will prove that there is harm or loss because an authority in the road has specified in the report. So hence we say that applies to the principle of indemnity. Utmost good faith. We are saying here, hey, the greatest people lie. You know, some people lie because with the principle of utmost good faith, some people buy cars. They stay in Togos or they stay in Tembis. But they tell the insurance company to say, I stay in Sante, I stay in Albati. But you know very well that you stay in Togos. And the very, very unfortunate part is this person stays in Tembisa or this person stays in Soweto. And the insurance company will ask to say, you just bought a car. Is this car now? Tell us about where the car will be parked at night. So you say the car will be parked in Sante, knowing very well that the car will be parked in Soweto. And you are saying, they ask you, okay, it will be parked in Sante. Will it be parked in a yard with a locked gate? And the person lies furthermore to say, no, the car will be parked in a garage with a yard and a locked gate, knowing very well that that car will be parked in a yard with no gate at all. So that is what the principle of utmost good faith is talking about here. To say utmost good faith, the insured has to be honest in supplying details when entering into an insurance contract. Because as you buy a car, the entering process of the process of entering an insurance contract involves those questions that I just asked, to say, where is the car going to be parked? Okay, some are honest to say, I stay in Soweto, or I stay in T8, but they are not honest about where the car will be located. Is that yard having a gate? You know very well that you bought a car, but there's no gate there, there's no garage, but you're saying the car will be in a garage and a yard with a locked gate. So that is talking to the principle of utmost good faith, to say, as you enter an insurance contract, be honest, don't lie. Can't start by buying a car before you buy a gate. Buy a gate before you buy a car. Then as we proceed, insurable interest, it talks to what? The insured must prove that he or she will suffer financial loss if the insured object is damaged. So this talks to the idea that as someone goes to buy that car, maybe they have borrowed money from the bank and they are paying the amount of money every month. So insurable interest talks to the principle of saying, why is the insured? Why are you interested in insurance? You are interested in insurance because should this car be stolen, you still have to pay the loan amount back to the bank. But if now the car is stolen and you don't have insurance, you will be paying a loan for a car that you are not using. So you'll be experiencing financial loss. Now we move to another aspect where we are talking about identifying compulsory insurance, which is applicable to each statement below. We have Natalie. Natalie broke her leg when her car collided with another car and she's demanding compensation. Then Pete lost his job due to retrenchment and is claiming compensation from the Department of Labor. Then 2.3, Jamie Ltd ensures that the workplace is safe to avoid unnecessary accidents. So when you look into these three, you have three compulsory types of insurance and they are all covered here. Immediately you see the idea that Natalie broke her leg when her car collided with another car. You know that this talks to what now? COEDA. It talks to COEDA, compensation for occupational injuries, and is it COEDA? It cannot be COEDA. This talks to what? Road or RAF, road accident fund, because with COEDA it talks about the workplace. So you see, you need to wake up. Then Pete lost his job to retrenchment. This talks to what? UIF, Unemployment Insurance Fund. So this is the fund that you claim after losing your job. Then Jamie Ltd ensures that the workplace is safe, which then talks to COEDA. So don't see an injury and assume that this is COEDA. But what you should see, it should be an injury or a challenge that is happening in the workplace. So as you can see, Jamie Ltd ensures that the workplace is safe to avoid unnecessary accidents. So these are your solution: road accident fund, unemployment insurance fund, and compensation for occupational injuries and disease act. Then we look into forms of ownership. With forms of ownership, you should know the characteristics of your forms of ownership. You should also know the tax implications, the management, the capital, the division of profits, and the legislation or legal requirements of each form of ownership. To say each form of ownership can have success and failure factors depending on the tax requirements of each form of ownership, and then management. Ownership impacts on management failure, which can determine the success or failure of the business. So the ownership impacts on management, to say who can make the decision and who cannot. Capital refers to the ability to obtain capital from various sources, for example, the own and borrowed capital. The forms of ownership vary and are different in terms of that. Division of profit. This refers to how profit is divided between the owners, shareholders, or investors. Legislation or legal requirements. This is for establishing or starting the business, and it has to do with the impact of establishing costs and time before the business can legally operate or do business. Now let us look into a scenario again. So let me give you this scenario for 5 minutes. You try to answer, then I come back with the solutions. So I give you 5 minutes. Welcome back. Now let us look into 2.1 and look into the scenario below and then answer questions that follow. You have Khadija Printers, Pty Ltd, Khadija Printers Ltd, Pty Ltd needed large amounts of capital for expansion. Their management decided to convert the company into another type of company so that they could be able to sell shares to the public on JSE. Now identify the form of ownership that Khadija Printers wants to convert into and to motivate your answer by quoting from the scenario for 3 months. Then explain how capital and management can contribute to the success of the form of ownership identified in 2.1.1. So there's one form of ownership. As you can see, the Pty Ltd talks to a private company. So if they want to change the management deciding to convert the company into another type of company so that they are able to sell their shares on the public, therefore private company does not sell shares to the public, but public company does. So the form of ownership that they want to be converted into is called what? Public company. So the answer was supposed to be public company. The motivation so that they would be able to sell shares to the public on JSE, and that would be 3 months. Then as we proceed, we look into how these factors can contribute to the success or failure. When you check here the success of your public company in terms of capital, capital is about how the money can be obtained by this form of ownership. So when you look into a public company, the success is that it can raise large amounts of capital as shares and debentures can be sold to the public. That is the success. The share capital clause in the memorandum of incorporation or may be changed due to more shares. That allows them to obtain more capital as well. And then a public company's shares can be listed on the Johannesburg Security Exchange, which gives the company exposure to more potential investors. But what are the failure factors? Growth is limited if sufficient capital cannot be raised, and large amounts of capital are required to start a public company because it is designed for large operations. Then raising extra capital may be difficult if the economic climate is unfavorable, and then share prices change all the time and they may lose value. So when it comes to share prices, they may lose value. And then let us look into management. When it comes to management of a public company, what is the success there? What is the success? The success is the idea that a public company is managed by a board of highly skilled directors, which results in better decisions or decision making. And then the management of the company can be or can improve since directors are accountable to the shareholders. Then shareholders can vote for the director at the annual general meeting or AGM and appoint the most capable directors to manage the company. So those are the success for a public company. But what is the failures there? What are the failures? Directors may not have direct interest of the company, which may hamper the growth of the profit maximization. And then directors may not be motivated to work very hard because the shareholders decide on the director's remuneration, and then a large amount of structure can result in timeless decision making. So it may take time to make decisions for a public company. Those are the failures. Then as we proceed, we look into the characteristics of the two forms of ownership with a private company. The characteristics include the idea that it requires one or more directors or one or more shareholders to start. It raises capital by issuing shares to its shareholders, and the name ends with Pty Ltd, and then auditing of financial statements there is optional. But when we look into the characteristics of a partnership, with a partnership partnership, the partners combine capital and they may also borrow capital from the financial institutions together. Profit is shared according to the partnership agreement, and then there's no legal requirements regarding the name of the partnership, and there's no formalities regarding start, or only written partnership agreement is required. Then we look into presentation and data response. With presentation and data response, you should know the following, because this is a presentation which is an act of communicating information to the audience. So we should know the following factors. Factors to be considered when preparing, which is before the presentation. Factors to be considered by the presenter while presenting, which would be during their presentation, like in this picture here. And then also you have factors to be considered when providing feedback in a non-aggressive manner, and also factors to be considered when looking into improvement of the presentation for the future. Then the impact of visual aids. Now let us look into the presentation factors. We have the following presentation factors. So the presenter will have to prepare, the presenter will go present, and the presenter will have to respond to questions. So in case of preparing, this is what the presenters should know. The presenter should prepare by doing the following: by having a clear purpose and main points of the presentation. The presenter should prepare by having by preparing a rough draft of the presentation with an introduction, body, and conclusion. And also the presenter should be fully conversant with the content or objectives of the presentation, and they should also rehearse in order to have confident and also consider the time frame for the presentation. But what are the factors that should be considered while presenting? So during the presentation, the presenter should establish credibility by introducing themselves as the presenters at the start. They should also show the most important information first. They should also make the purpose of the presentation clear at the start of the presentation. They should involve the audience with a variety of methods, and also they should maintain eye contact with the audience. Now, after presenting or during the presentation, there will be a question and answer session. So this is how the presenter should deal with providing feedback to the questions that will be coming from the audience. So they should be polite with responding to questions. They should ensure that each question is understood before responding, and they should also be honest when responding to questions and keep answers short and to the point. Now, let us look into a typical question on such. 2.1. Read the scenario below and answer questions that follow. Let's do it together. We have Welile's presentation. Welile's presentation talks to the following. Welile, a financial manager, presented her financial report during the annual general meeting. Now, he showed the most important information first. Let's underline that. He showed the most important information first. He also maintained eye contact with the shareholders. Welile answered shareholders politely, and he was honest when answering questions. What is the question requiring of you? Quote from the scenario above 2 factors that Welile considered while presenting and while handling feedback in the presentation. So what are we seeing here? Which factors did Welile consider when Welile was presenting? Firstly, Welile showed the most important information first during the presentation. He also maintained eye contact with the audience, meaning Welile was looking to the audience while responding. Then Welile answered questions politely, and Welile was honest when answering questions. So the number 1 is a factor to be considered while presenting, and number 2 is a factor to be considered while presenting. But with number 3 here, these are factors to be considered when responding or handling feedback in a non-aggressive manner, and number 4 as well. Now let's check. What is the solution? Factors to be considered while presenting: must show the most important information first, must also maintain eye contact with the shareholders based on the scenario. Then handling feedback, Welile answered the shareholders politely, yes, and he was also honest when answering questions. Now we have 2.1. which is now on visual 8. Now read the scenario below and answer questions that follow. You have Thokoza Family Fitness. This is a gym in Thokoza, and now the management of Thokoza Family Fitness requested Mr. Chabalala to present the business financial statements to various stakeholders. He used the special pen to write on the displayed graphs. Now 2.1.1, identify the visual aids applicable in the scenario above and motivate your answer by quoting from the scenario above for 3 marks. Then discuss the impact of the visual aids identified in 2.1.1. So now you should know the impact of your various visual aids, and your key answer there will be from the positives and negatives. So we see that here they say our answer is on the issue of a special pen. So you should ask yourself to say which visual aid allows the presenter to use a special pen. So he used a special pen to write on the displayed graphs. So the answer here is talking to a smart board or an interactive whiteboard. So the answer here is, according to this scenario, an interactive whiteboard or a smart board. How do you motivate? He used a special pen to write on the displayed graph. Then, what are the positives of and what are the negatives of the visual aid? Which is now a question phrased as the impact, which allows you to provide both positives and negatives. Now, what are the positives? The positives of using an interactive whiteboard is that it is effective in recording responses and new proposals from stakeholders. It is useful to capture feedback and new ideas. And images projected directly from a computer. Images can be projected directly from a computer, so no external devices are needed because it can project itself. Then, what are the negatives? The implementation of load shading could disrupt the presentation as it requires stable supply of electricity. Technical challenges may render it ineffective, for example, the loss of signal while using it. Then we further look into advising the marketing manager on aspects that should be considered when designing a multimedia presentation, which include starting with the text or heading, or using legible font and font size, selecting a background, including or creating graphics, keeping slides or images or graphs simple. Those are your aspects that should be considered when designing a multimedia presentation. Then we start with business rules. Just to remind you, we'll be looking into examination preparation on the following: ethics and professionalism, creative thinking and problem solving, social responsibility, corporate social responsibility, and corporate social investment, human rights, inclusivity and environmental issues, and team performance and conflict management. So let's start with ethics and professionalism. What should you know there? The differences between ethical behavior and professional behavior. Remember, ethical behavior, what is wrong or right in the society. Professional behavior, what is wrong or right in a business. Then, you should also know the application of the King Code principles, which include transparency together with accountability, together with responsibility. So you should know how these principles apply. Then, you should know types of unethical business practices, which includes unfair advertising, together with pricing of goods in rural areas, together with tax evasion. As you can see, hey, the advertisement makes me hungry. But in reality, when you go and buy, the burger looks tired. It's not appetizing like in the advert. That is unfair. What you see in the advert should be what you get in reality, not this burger. Look at the lettuce is not, we are not sure. It's not make sure about the lettuce here. You can see the cheese. You see the cheese here is fresh. You can see it's well shaped. But this one is not well shaped. There's a problem. So those are unethical business practices: unfair advertising, pricing of goods in rural areas, and tax evasion. This is not allowed. Then, types of unprofessional include sexual harassment. Number one, which we should be having an understanding to say unprofessional business practices. These are conduct by workers. Unauthorized use of workplace funds. You are a manager, you use the money of the business for paying personal expenses. Abuse of work time is also considered to be unprofessional business practices. Now, let us look into them in a summary. Unethical include unfair advertising, pricing of goods in rural areas, tax evasion. Unprofessional workers are not allowed to do sexual harassment to other workers, abuse of work time, and unauthorized use of workplace funds and resources. Now, this is how you can be assessed. Number one, identify the unprofessional business practices. You are choosing from the three. You have abuse of work time, you have sexual harassment, you also have and unauthorized use of workplace funds and resources. These statements help you to understand much better, and I will be giving you hints on how to deal with such. 3.1.1 says directors of KNZ Consulting uses the business credit card to pay for personal expenses. So what are we seeing here? The director is not supposed to be using the credit card of the business to pay their personal expenses and for personal experiences or personal expenses. So we consider this the using of money that you are not allowed to be using, because the money belongs to the business, but the directors are using it for their personal expenses. We consider it to be what? Unauthorized use of workplace funds and resources. The funds belong to the business because this is a business credit card. Then, employees of Zamu attorneys spend more time on social networks during office hours than on their duties. What are they doing? They are creating TikTok videos. So if they create the TikTok videos, what is going to happen? Productivity goes down. So they are abusing work time because they have signed in a contract to say they are going to work for 8 or 9 hours per day, but they are using some of the hours to make personal fund through the social media. So that is considered to be abuse of work time. So let's check if I'm correct. Unauthorized use of workplace funds and resources. Remember to write it as it is, word for word. Unauthorized use of workplace funds and resources. Then abuse of work time. Then we look into a scenario now. In the scenario, you should do analysis the same way. Read the scenario with understanding, thereafter look into the solution. Now, read the scenario below and answer questions that follow. So trading enterprise. So trading enterprise charges high prices for goods of inferior quality in remote areas. STE uses fine print to conceal information, important information. Identify two types of what now unethical business practices displayed by STE and motivate your answer by quoting from the scenario above. Now, advise the business of ST, the management of ST, and how they could deal with each type of unethical business practice identified in 3.1.1 and explain how they could apply transparency and accountability as part of King Code principles. So, when we identify from this scenario, when they are charging high prices for goods of inferior quality in remote areas. Remote areas are areas where you don't find, they are not next to cities, they are very far from cities. So we consider this to be pricing of goods in rural areas. Then STE using fine print to conceal important information. This is, the fine print means information is too small, so the customers might not see what is in the product. Therefore, this is considered to be what? To be unfair advertising, because the information is not readily available, it is not understood by the customer, so it is unfair. So we consider this to be unfair advertising. Let's check if I'm correct. Pricing of goods, yes, because social trading charges higher prices for goods of inferior quality in remote areas. Then unfair advertising because STE uses fine print to conceal important information. Now we move and look into strategies to deal with each. Because they are selling prices using a higher price, the strategy to solve that is that STE should work together with the supplier in order to share the delivery cost to remote areas. And they can also buy in bulk in order to get discounts to avoid charging high prices. They should also charge fair or market-related product or prices for goods and services. With unfair advertising, The business should ensure that they keep the advertising fair and in line with the constitution. Then businesses must also make sure that they do not omit key information from the advertisements. And also, advertisements should be honest and legal and should not abuse consumer trust or lack of knowledge by using that fine print. Then another assessment now on or solution on the principles of the King Code principles such as transparency and accountability. This is how you can apply accountability or transparency. Transparency can be applied by making sure that decisions or actions are clear to stakeholders. That's one. Number two, staffing and other processes should be open, meaning what is outside and what is inside. So those who are important members of the business but they are outside should know what is happening inside. Hence, we say staffing and other processes should be transparent. Employees or shareholders should be aware of the employment policies of the business. Then auditing and other reports must be accurate and available for shareholders. Then regular audits should be done to determine the effectiveness of the business. That way it shows that there's transparency because there's a regular audit. Also there's checking of reports because auditing means to check. So if the checking is not done, it means somehow there's lack of transparency because these reports have to be sent to shareholders. Then accountability. Accountability talks to being able to give answers. So with accountability, there must be regular communication between management and shareholders. With accountability, the business should be accountable or responsible for their decisions or actions. Then another one is that the company should appoint internal and external auditors to audit the financial statements. Then the board should ensure that the company's ethics are effectively implemented. Then we move to creative thinking and problem solving. So here you should know how to identify the problem solving techniques from a scenario or statement. In this regard, we are looking into the statement. Now, identify the problem solving technique represented by each statement below. Carl gives his employees an opportunity to suggest ideas randomly, which are then written on a flip chart. Then, those are the keywords. Suggestions of ideas randomly and writing them on the flip chart. The management of Penny Consulting have listed advantages and disadvantages of changing their business structure. The employees of Shoba Fashion Design have been requested to quietly generate as many ideas as possible and then share them with other employees. Now, what is the solution then? Immediately see suggesting ideas randomly. The answer should be brainstorming. During a brainstorming, ideas are coming in randomly and recorded on a flip chart. But when you see advantages or disadvantages, or sometimes it might be pros and cons, you should know now that that is talking to what? To a problem solving technique we call force field analysis because it talks to changing as well as a keyword. Then we have brainstorming, you have force field. But when you see employees of Shoba employees being requested to generate quietly many ideas or do silent brainstorming, it might be generate quietly, it might be silent brainstorming. You should know that the answer is nominal group technique. So those are the problem solving techniques and how you should identify them. Then we have another question here where I will give you 5 minutes. You try to answer and come back with the solutions on creative thinking and problem solving. So let me give you 5 minutes. Welcome back. Now let us look into how were you supposed to analyze and respond to the questions there. Question 1 is asking you to name problem-solving steps. Question 2 is asking you to outline how businesses can apply brainstorming. And then you have a scenario, and it asks of you to answer questions that follow. You have Kuruman Electronics, and you have Tabo, the owner of Kuruman Electronics, who sells electronic devices. The owner allows Albert, his employee, to come up with alternative ways of doing things in the business. Furthermore, Albert is also trained on innovative techniques. Then, the question is, quote 2 ways in which KE can create an environment that stimulates creative thinking from the scenario above, and then suggest other ways in which the environment can stimulate, in which they can create an environment that stimulates creative thinking in the workplace. So let's start by looking into the first question. Naming the problem-solving steps. Number 1, identify the problem. Thereafter, define the problem and identify possible solutions to the problem. Thereafter, select the most appropriate alternative to the problem. Thereafter, define an action plan or develop an action plan to help you solve the problem. So here, the focus was only 4 aspects to consider. So we'll mark the first 4. Thereafter, this other information is cancelled because the examiner wanted you to name only 4. So if your correct answer is under this bullet and this bullet and this bullet, and maybe 2 of these are incorrect, you will only obtain 1, 2 marks than this one. So just know you should be accurate in a question that requires of you to name. Then outline how the business could apply brainstorming. Number 1, the brainstorming, remember, should not be in any order. They can be in any order. You should not follow any steps according maybe to your notes. You can use the shortest phrases to respond to this question. Like I did here to say, the group must set time limit for each brainstorming session. And then members state possible causes of the problem. Then another one is that people in the group must suggest ideas at random, and all ideas must be written on a flip chart. And then all members of the group randomly make suggestions. That's how you respond to such a question. You take your shortest phrases, use them to respond. Then with Kuruman traders, the idea that they allow Albert, his employee, to come up with alternative ways of doing things in the business is considered to be the business, Kuruman Electronics, creating an environment that stimulates creative thinking. That's one. Furthermore, they allowed Albert, or the Albert is also trained on innovative technique. That is another way, because Albert will improve the skills, and then that will help Albert to be better at the skills of being more creative. Then, as we proceed, we look into other ways now. Encouraging alternative ways of doing things. It cannot be other because we saw it in the scenario. Responding enthusiastically or with energy to ideas is considered, and never letting anyone feel less important about their ideas will help to create an environment that stimulates creative thinking. Placing suggestion boxes around the workplace and keeping communication channels open for new ideas is considered to be encouraging businesses, encouraging the environment that stimulates creative thinking. Making time for brainstorming sessions to generate new ideas, for example, having regular workshops, is considered to be another way of doing it. Then let us look into problem solving. With problem solving, you have to read the scenario below and answer questions that follow. Let's check. The management of Jacob Construction wants to change the structure of their business. They asked employees to evaluate advantages and disadvantages of the proposed change, and the management invited experts to research consumer complaints. Now, identify 2 problem-solving techniques applied by JC and motivate your answer by quoting from the scenario above. So we see that they want to change the structure, but how are they doing it? They asked employees to evaluate the advantages and disadvantages, or they have asked them to evaluate the pros and cons to the proposed change. So that talks to what? To force field analysis. But immediately they invite experts. Our keyword there is the invitation of experts, which then talks to what? Delphi technique. So let's check if I'm correct. Yes, we have force field. Yes, we have Delphi technique. And that's how you should look into identifying them. The issue of change tells you always to force field analysis, but the invitation of experts, the questionnaires, then talk to Delphi technique. Now, let's look into how these problem-solving techniques can be applied. With force field analysis, describe the current situation and the desired situation. List pros and cons or forces that will support and resist change. Weigh up the positives and negatives and decide if the project is viable. The project, which is the change, to check if can the change happen or not. Then choose the force with the highest score. If it says yes to change, choose it. If it says no, then don't choose it. Identify priorities and develop an action plan on how to do it. Delphi technique. Experts do not have to be in one place and will be contacted individually. Another one is that experts will be requested to send individual responses to the questionnaire. And the business need to summarize the responses from the experts in a feedback report. And finally, the business will summarize the feedback from experts in a report. That's it. Then we look into social responsibility, where we talk about the triple bottom line: profit, people, and planet. Thereafter, we look into socio-economic issues, where we look into HIV and AIDS, unemployment, and poverty, together with strategies on how to deal with each. Then, the well-being of the employees and how the business can contribute time and effort in contributing to the well-being of the community as well. Then, we have corporate social responsibility, which talks to the purpose, the components, and the impact. And with CSR, we have CSI, which is corporate social investment. It talks to the purpose as well, the focus area, and the impact. Now, let us look into a possible exam question on your CSR and CSI. We just did a short revision using those mind map structured headings there. 3.1, June traders. With June traders sells grocery items in Mtambega. And then the management allows flexible hours to enhance productivity, and sporting facilities were provided by JT to encourage employees to stay fit. Now, quote 2 ways in which JT contributed to the well-being of the employees. And then another one is that explain other ways in which JT can contribute time or contribute to the well-being of the employees. So yes, the business is in Mtambega. However, we are saying the management allows flexible working hours to enhance productivity in the business. So because of that, what are we seeing? We are seeing the business contributing to the well-being of the employees, because they are allowed maybe to come in at 10 instead of coming in at 6. And then sporting facilities were provided to show that they care about their employees by JT to encourage employees to stay fit. That is another way of showing care. So when you quote there, that is how you should quote. Then evaluate the impact of CSR on the business and on the communities. Now let us look into the solution. What were you supposed to quote there? You're supposed to quote, number 1, the management allows flexible working hours to enhance productivity. Then the sporting facilities are also provided by JT to encourage employees to stay fit. Then explaining other ways, provide recreational. Now this is a repeat because why we saw it in the scenario. So I'm doing this deliberately so that you don't repeat. Allowing flexible hours is a repeat because of the scenario as well. So you don't get marks for repeating a fact that already gave you 2 marks through the quoting from the scenario. But providing transportation for employees who work unusual long hours, we consider that to be 2 marks. Providing employees participation in decision making that affects them, that's 2 marks. And then offering medical assessments to workers is also considered to be 2 marks. Then the impact of CSR and CSI on the business. CSI is when the business invests their money or resources towards the community to encourage betterment in the community standards of living. What is the advantage of taking the profits of the business to invest in the community? The business will have the following advantages. Number 1, it may attract experienced employees or increase the pool of skilled labor, which could increase the productivity. That is 2. Another advantage for the business, it will have a positive image as the business looks after the employees and conducts itself in a responsible way. CSR is attended to here regarding the second point, because corporate social responsibility is about the business behaving ethical. Then a business may have competitive advantage resulting in good publicity and improved reputation. Then what are the negatives? The negatives include the idea that customers may not buy products or services, resulting in a decrease in sales. And then another one is that social spending reduces the business's efficiency, which may lead to it making less being less competitive, and detailed reports must be drawn up, which can be time consuming. Then the impact of the community. Socio-economic issues are attended to, which can improve the welfare of the community. Training opportunities in the community increase as the possibility of appointments of community members also increase. However, what are the negatives? The businesses are not always equipped to address social problems that that are really affecting the community. Community tends to depend on CSR programs and struggle to take their own initiatives. Now let us look into the other scenario. Now this is on socio-economic issues. Now let us look into it. Vuvu's Chicken Farm. Vuvu's Chicken Farm specializes in selling live and slaughtered chickens in the local township, and some employees of TFC stay absent from work on a regular basis as they have to collect ARVs from the clinic. Then the majority of the people in the community cannot satisfy their basic needs. Now, identify two socio-economic issues affected them. Now, there are 2, but we have 3. Unemployment, poverty, and what? HIV and AIDS. So immediately you see ARV employees going to it, that is affecting now the business. Immediately you see the idea that the people in the community cannot satisfy their needs, then that is poverty. So let us look into another one. Advise businesses on the relationship between social responsibility and triple bottom line. So the solution is clear. Because of the basic needs, that's poverty. Because of collecting ARVs, that's HIV and AIDS. So let's check. HIV and AIDS there, the motivation. Did we focus on the keyword only? No, we focused on the entire sentence. From where it starts, some employees, as you can see, some employees to 8 ends collect ARVs from the clinic. That's correct. Poverty, yes, because the majority of people in the community cannot satisfy their needs. That's 6 months. Now let's talk to how the business deals with, or strategies to deal with these socio-economic issues. How to deal with HIV and AIDS. Develop counseling programs for affected or infected employees. Then another one, conduct workshops on HIV and AIDS or programs. Then roll out an antiretroviral for infected. We consider this to be an R. We saw it in the scenario. Encourage employees to join HIV and AIDS support groups. Then we go to strategies to deal with poverty. What can the business do there? The business can invest in youth starting the business, and they can invest in youth starting the business who can be a competitor, buyer, or a supplier. They can invest in infrastructure and housing programs in the local area. They can attract best employees by being socially responsible and offering best volunteering programs, and they can support poverty alleviation programs that are offered by the government, and they can donate money or food parcels to local NGOs. Then advise the business on the relationship between profit together with people, together with planet, together with, those are the only 3. There's no other one. Profit, people, planet. So profit means that. So this question has marks 6 here. Profit, 2 marks. And when you explain it, 1 mark. People, 2 marks. When you explain it, 1 mark. Planet, 2 marks. When you explain it, 1. Now, profit means that the business should not focus on profit or charging high prices, but they should also invest in CSI. Then this one we say is max, but it will also be correct should it be written first. Then another one is that the business should, with people, the business should not have a negative impact on the community. You choose one between community, employees, or people. Then the business should invest in sustainable community projects, and then we say this is maximum. planet. The business should not exhaust or harm the environment for profit purpose. And then the business must support eco-friendly products or production methods. Then we move to human rights, inclusivity, and environmental issues. You have the following human rights in the workplace that the business has to deal with: privacy, dignity, equity, freedom of speech and expression, information, safety, security, and protection of life. I repeat, safety, security, protection of life. Write it in full. Freedom of speech and expression. Write it in full, please. Now, let us look into another aspect in this subtopic. Diversity issues. You have the following: poverty. Number 2, race. You have the other one. Gender, the other one. Language, the other one. Age, the other one. Culture or religion, the last one. Disability. You should know how to identify them from the scenario and know how the business should deal with them. Now let us look into another aspect: environmental issues, which talk to protecting the workplace environment and human health. Number 1, strategies to deal with protecting the workplace environment and the environment. The responsibility of the employer in promoting human health and safety. The role of the health and safety representatives in protecting the workplace, and the responsibility of the employee. Now let us look into possible assessment. You might be asked to identify the human rights in the statement or scenario. 1.1.1, 1.1.2, 1.1.3, together with 1.1.4. They help you identify these different human rights in the workplace. So let's see. Employees are not forced to do embarrassing work. Where is our keyword? Embarrassing or degrading work. Managers ensure that employees do not suffer because of discrimination. When there's discrimination, it means things are not equal, and things should be equal, guys. Right? Then, businesses allow open communication channels between management and employees. Now, there's open communication. They're allowed to express their views. They're allowed to talk about things that they don't like in that business. Then employees are provided with protective clothing, and employees have personal information. The personal information is kept confidential there. So when it comes to that, let us identify the human right that is dealt with in each statement here. When you see dignity, you see it by the keyword embarrassing. So the answer there is dignity. Then managers ensure that employees do not suffer because of discrimination. That one we consider to be what? Discrimination. Equity. There's equity, hence now employees are not feeling discriminated. They feel treated equally. Are we clear? Equal. But immediately there's no equality, we see. So employees should be equal. Then businesses allow open communication channels between management and, that is freedom of speech and expression because of open communication. Then employees are provided with protective clothing. Then I said is safety, security, and protection of life. Then employees' personal information is kept confidential, which is the human right, privacy there. What is the solution? Number 1, dignity, because employees are not allowed to do embarrassing work. Number 2, equity, because they are treated equal. Number 3, freedom of speech and expression. And then another one, safety, security, and protection of life. Then the last one, privacy. Now we look into diversity issues. We have Look Printers, LP. Look Printers specializes in printing flyers. Now, the management ensures that there is no discrimination in the workplace based on skin color, and LP also encourages older employees to help young employees to develop their potential. Now, identify 2 diversity issues affecting LP in the scenario above and motivate your answer by quoting from the scenario. Now, explain 2 ways in which LP should deal with each of the diversity issues in question 3.3.1. Then suggest the benefits of diversity in the workplace. The answer there, because of skin color, is race, and then because of age, you see the idea of young employees developing their full potential. Now, that's 2, that's 1 for motivation. Then another one is recommend ways in which LP can deal with each of the diversity issues. Race. With race, the business must implement affirmative action policies as required by the other law. Then there should be no discrimination on grounds of skin color, that's race. But with age, how can they deal with it? A business may not employ children under the age of 15 or younger, and young employees must be advised to respect and learn from older employees. Then we look into the benefits of diversity. Number one, workforce diversity improves the ability of the business to solve problems. Then employees value each other's diversity and learn to connect or communicate across lines of differences. Then diversity improves the workplace or the workforce morale or motivation. Then I want to give you something. Then we move to teams. With teams, which is the last part of our lesson, you have to know criteria of a successful team. You have to know characteristics of a successful team, team dynamic theories, and stages of team development. Know causes of conflict and how to handle conflict, and dealing with grievances together with dealing with difficult personalities or employees. Now, let me give you these 2-minute statements so that you then identify the criteria of a successful team. Now, with this being said, due to time, we could not finish our lesson. So we'll then look into saying, for team performance you need to know the criteria of a successful team, how to identify them. Thereafter, because of the review, you say progress. Because of the issue of decision making, you then say cooperation. Then because of commitment, you say interpersonal attitudes and behavior. Then for shared values, you say the teams should respect. Because of issue of respect, you say this is shared values. Then you should know the correct grievance procedure. After knowing the correct grievance procedure, know that with storming, you're going to see confront. Know that with performing, you're going to see that the team is aware and makes decision without supervision. And then with forming, the task, they gather information about the task to be performed. That is forming. Then the correct procedure to deal with grievance, they should verbally talk. So think with that, look into the grievance, then it should be done. Know the causes of conflict as well. Then the summary of our lesson, we looked into business rules, and this was your business rules. Then thank you for watching. Keep well. Goodbye.